So it was about 5 years ago. I ran a nonprofit for our church. I had a bunch of staff, a lot of responsibilities, and honestly, I got to the point where I was so concerned with making people happy, meeting people's expectations, trying to do everything I thought I could do to look good at my job, that I was beat down. Honestly, I feel like I was depressed, I was struggling, I was broken. I could go somewhere and put on a smile and talk, but I was an empty shell of myself, and I honestly didn't know how I was gonna get through it.
You know, several years back, I worked at a place called the Tulsa Bus Plant. You know, they had great pay, they had great insurance that provided for my family. But as I was working there, I was reminded that when I was 16 years old, I had surrendered my life to the ministry. You know, I knew that God wanted me to work with youth. But I spent many years just running from that call. And so I was at this place now where I had this great job working, providing for my family. But we got to this point where I was just so tired. I was weary. Just felt like every day I would get up, I would go to work these crazy hours, and then I would go home, I would fall asleep and be tired, and then just the same routine over and over. I remember being so broken, just realizing, man, I am not doing what God has called me to do.
The first summer, after Lynn and I were married, I became youth pastor at a church in Oklahoma City. It was a full-time job, and it was our only income. We had a great ministry. We had kids come to know the Lord. The ministry grew, and it was just our thought and plan that we would work there continually. They would hire us as their youth pastor through the winter months. But one Sunday night in August, the pastor called me in and said, we will not need your services any longer. Well, I was devastated. I didn't know what to do. I was married, no income, and I had dreamed about ministering to these kids for a long time. I walked out of the church, and in my heart, I thought I will never go back to church again.
There was a time in my life a few years back that I felt really alone and my heart was distant from God. And the reason why is because I stopped being in the Word and I stopped praying. And what had happened was my parents moved out of town and I stayed alone in the house, and that's how I felt, alone. I started a new job and I loved it, and I was so consumed with other things that weren't really God. And the issue really was that I was substituting my relationship with God for ministry. And so there was so many opportunities that God had opened doors for me to minister, but my heart was still far away from Him. And maybe you're feeling this way. Maybe your heart was distant.
But God, He showed me that He had a different plan for me. Honestly, in one of my quiet times, He just reminded me that He's the one I'm trying to live for. And I didn't need to be impressing other people. I didn't need to be living for them. And then he showed me that, you know, He's still got a plan for my life. And I kind of got a picture of what He was doing in my future, and it gave me hope. And so I was able to rise up out of the difficulty I was in because of the revelation of who God was and what He was going to do in my life.
But God showed up in such a remarkable way. I remember this guy told me to call our associational youth guy who kind of helped with all the youth groups. And he told me about this church plant that was meeting at his school. And so he told me that they would definitely be interested in talking with me. So I called this guy, I called the pastor, and he told me, he's like, man, we need somebody to work with the youth. And if you want it, the job is yours. And so I remember being able to begin working for the church and just really being able to start walking out that call that God had in my life. Later on, I was able to, because of just the doors that God had opened, I was able to quit the bus plant and begin working there at the school. I worked in the cafeteria and I drove a bus. I just remember that amazing feeling, going from feeling so down to feeling right where God wanted me to be. That only could have happened through God.
But God had a man who walked up to me and said, I need to meet with you. Can you meet with me on Tuesday? I need to share with you what's going on. And so I met with this man. His name was Gene Moore, and from that time on, we began a discipleship ministry and a relationship that changed my life. He provided both spiritual and physical resources that put me exactly where God wanted me. And I realized that what I thought was a perfect plan was not God's perfect plan.
But God, He did so much for me. He gave me a purpose. And one day I was in my room and I was in this deep sadness, and the Lord called me to go to a mission trip in Nuevo Laredo. And on that mission trip in worship, God spoke to me and He told me, it's not about you. And so I own those words, that it really isn't about me, it's about Him. And so my prayer is that it would be less of me and more of Him. And He has done so much for me. He has given me freedom. He has given me joy. And if He did it for me, He can do it for you.